Edmonton Millwoods.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I will be splitting my time with the member from Magantic, Lagabre. Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canada is becoming less and less safe. Violent crime, car theft, and gun crime have unleashed chaos and disorder in our communities. Crime, chaos, and drugs and disorder are common in our streets now, and the Liberal government is responsible for making this situation even worse. Since this Liberal government was elected in 2015, there has been a 34% surge in car thefts across Canada. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says that these auto theft have become a national crisis, with more than 200 vehicles stolen on average every day. The explosion of car thefts is making life even more unaffordable for Canadians. In 2022, car theft cost the insurance industry over $1 billion, resulting in higher insurance costs for every Canadian on their insurance premiums. Just in Toronto alone, Madam Speaker, auto theft crime is up by 300%. In other Canadian cities, over 100%. While the NDP Liberals say that they care about the safety of Canadians, they have had no real solutions to the rising auto theft crime across the country. In fact, their only real solution we've heard of so far is to host another fancy meeting in Ottawa. They're calling it the Auto Summit. So more meetings, no solutions. The Prime Minister let this auto theft crisis happen right under his watch. His reckless policies have allowed car thefts to explode in our communities and right across the country. And his only action to fix this is to hold another summit. Last week, in his own press release, the Prime Minister admitted it wasn't like this before the Liberal government took office in 2015. Madam Speaker, we can all agree on that one. Canadians don't feel safe in their communities and on the streets. But the Liberal Justice Minister and Attorney General told Canadians this is just in Canadians' heads, and that the increase in crime is empirically unlikely. But here are the facts, Madam Speaker. Violent crime is up 39%. Gang-related homicides are up over 100%. Violent gun crime has steadily increased every year and now over 100% since 2015. Murders are up 43%, the highest in 30 years. The crime wave that this government has caused isn't imaginary, it's real, and Canadians are experiencing it in every way. We continue to see news stories of violent crimes committed by repeat offenders who are out on bail. According to a report published last week by the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, violent crime is only getting worse, and Canada's Violent Crime Severity Index, which tracks changes in severity of violent crime, is at its highest level since 2007. During the last Conservative government, the Violent Crime Severity Index decreased by almost 25%. Under this Liberal government, it has increased by basically 30%. A recent Statistics Canada report shows that the rate of firearm-related violent crime in 2022 was at the highest level ever recorded, a nearly 10% increase from 2021 alone. According to Edmonton Police, the number of shootings in 2023 went up by 34%. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, Canadian businesses across the country are now being extorted by international gangsters. In January, Toronto Sun reported that the mayors of Brampton in Ontario and Surrey in British Columbia sent a letter to the Minister of Public Safety saying that they are deeply concerned for their communities due to these threats. Recent reports of their provinces have confirmed links between the extortion attempts and violent acts, including shootings and arson. Police are now investigating 27 related attempts to extortion series that have affected a number of members of the community in Edmonton region since October, including extortion, 15 arson cases, and 7 firearms offenses. Businesses and families are being shot at in Edmonton. Over a dozen homes that are under construction by different home builders have been burnt to the ground just since November. While the police are doing their job and catching these criminals, the Prime Minister's soft on crime legislation, such as Bill C-75, allows them to be released within hours of arrest. These reckless soft on crime policies only benefit the thieves and the criminals, Madam Speaker. In fact, it's only the criminals who are getting rich under this government. Liberal C5 eliminates mandatory prison for serious crimes such as this. It allows them to serve their sentence in the comfort of their own home. This government has shown more concern for the criminals than defending our communities. They have eliminated mandatory prison time for criminals who commit robbery with a firearm, weapons trafficking, and drive-by shootings. These reckless policies have made police powerless in stopping career car thieves and criminals. In today's Canada, a convicted criminal can just walk out the front door and be on the streets again, stealing cars and terrorizing neighborhoods soon after they've been arrested. It is no wonder that more and more Canadians are losing faith in our justice system. In fact, only 46% of Canadians still have confidence that their government will protect them. To make matters worse, Madam Speaker, the Liberal Justice Minister is failing to appoint enough judges to handle the cases, resulting in an increased number of cases which are being stayed or withdrawn. The Liberals are just not worth the cost, Madam Speaker. The Liberals' mismanagement has allowed organized crime to turn our federal ports into parking lots for stolen vehicles that are then shipped overseas. The Port of Montreal has become a major hub for stolen vehicles to be shipped out of Canada. Despite that, it only has 5 CBSA agents who inspect 580,000 containers that leave the port each year. In a recent article, in Montreal, a law enforcement agent said that CBSA has no resources to check the containers and that they check less than 1% of these containers. This is completely unacceptable, Madam Speaker, given that the current theft crisis happening in Canada. I want to remind this Prime Minister and this government that the RCMP, the Criminal Code, the Canadian Border Services Agency are all federal responsibilities. It is their responsibility to reduce auto theft as the provincial tool. Conservatives have a common sense plan to bring back safe streets and to protect our communities. We must hit the brakes on car theft with common sense, conservative, tough on crime policies. Our conservative plan will make prison time mandatory for repeat car thieves. Repeat offenders should not be allowed to serve their sentence in their living room watching Netflix. We will put a stop on house arrest for convicted car thieves, toughen sentences for gang-related car thieves, and eliminate the Liberal soft-on-crime bail policies for repeat violent offenders. Madam Speaker, we will go after the real criminals by restoring jail, not bail. The NDP Liberals have allowed career car thieves back on our streets to continue spreading chaos and disorder. Common sense Conservatives will ensure that repeat criminals are where they belong, behind bars. The Conservative government will not go easy on organized crime thieves. We will create a new specific aggravating factor where the offense of motor vehicle theft is committed for the benefit of organized crime. We will increase the mandatory prison from 6 months to 3 years for a third offense of auto theft. Conservatives will not stand by silently as our communities get terrorized by criminals who should be in jail, not on bail. A common-sense Conservative government will ensure that repeat violent offenders remain behind bars while awaiting trial, and we will bring back mandatory jail time for serious violent crimes that were repealed by this Liberal government. Madam Speaker, common-sense Conservatives will put a stop to auto theft, protect Canadians' property, and bring home safer streets. That's just common sense. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, let me quote a stat here, and this is back in 2007. The member made reference to 2007, and I quote, however, and we're talking about the province of Manitoba, however, the province's 2007 rate remained the highest in the country for the 11th straight year and was 24% higher than a decade ago. They're talking about Manitoba's automobile theft being the highest in the country. I remember being an MLA talking about the issue. I'll remind the member that it was Stephen Harper who was the Prime Minister back then. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately for people of Winnipeg, there's far too many victims. So at the end of the day, the member needs to recognize that in order to deal with an issue such as this, as we did back then, Madam Speaker, is there's an obligation to work with our other jurisdictions, provinces, law enforcement agencies, and to support where we can. Can the member indicate why it is Stephen Harper was such a disaster during that 2007-2008 on the issue of automobile theft in the province of Manitoba?
For Edmonton Millwoods.
Madam Speaker, the member wants to talk about stats. Here's some stats. Violent crime has been up by 39% since they've been in government for the last 8 years. Gang-related homicides are up 108%, Madam Speaker, since they've been in government. Madam Speaker, violent gun crime has increased. Murders are up. And yes, car thefts are also up, Madam Speaker, and it's not just about the cars. It's the fact that the insurance industry is saying it's costing them over $1 billion a year, which makes everybody's premiums more expensive, Madam Speaker. This government is just not worth the cost.
Questions et commentaires.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Matisse-Matin. The Conservatives have just realized that auto theft is taking place. I have been talking about this since October 2003. I tabled a motion at the security.
If he has anything to add, he can wait until it's time for questions and comments. In the meantime, he may want to offer respect to the individual who's currently having the floor.
The honourable member for Avignon-Matisse-Matin. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll start again because, unfortunately, I think that people didn't hear me. If they had worn their earpiece, it would have been better. I am happy that the Conservatives are realizing that there is an auto theft crisis in our country. I've been talking about this since October. I tabled a motion at the Security Committee to study this phenomena, and the Conservatives accepted it. They thought it was a good idea. But since then, they have done nothing but delay the work of the committee. They did it with C20 and C26. Why? Because they don't think it's that important at the end of the day, this auto theft crisis. So why are they talking about it today? Because it appeals to their base, because they want to chase down crime. Why is it a priority for the Conservative Party today? The honourable member for Edmonton Millwood.
Speaker, Conservatives have been steadfast in supporting communities and calling for and supporting safer communities, Madam Speaker. We have brought forward legislation in the past under government to have mandatory minimums, which were actually repealed by the Liberal government, making it easier for criminals to get bail, making it easier for criminals to serve their sentence at home. We have opposed those measures all along the way, and we will continue to do that because, Madam Speaker, Canadians want and need safer streets.
Questions and comments. The honourable for New Westminster Burnaby.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I like the member, but he neglected to say a whole bunch of things around the issue of car theft that concerns a lot of Canadians. First off, when the Harper government was in power, they actually slashed $600 million from RCMP funding. They cut over 1,000 border officers, and they gutted the crime prevention programs that were so effective in actually stopping car theft. And you'll recall, Madam Speaker, that under the Harper government, the highest rates in the country in our history in terms of car theft were found. 5 of the worst years in terms of car theft over the last 15 were all under the Harper government. Oh, really? Now, Madam Speaker, we saw in December Conservatives voting again to cut with Vote 3, to cut CBSA funding, Vote 76 to cut FinTrek funding, Vote 103, 104, 105 proposed by Conservatives. They voted for it to cut over $100 billion in RCMP funding. Why are Conservatives so contradictory on issues like crime?
Brief answer from the honourable member for Edmonton Millwoods.
Madam Speaker, we have already proposed ideas of legislation that would actually bring in mandatory minimums for those that have committed car theft for 3 times. Currently, under the Liberals, it's only 6 months. Our proposal would bring it up to 3 years. we are going to get tough on the criminals and make streets safer for Canadians.